wondering if you're able to share a story or two about like an attack that we identified in either a water treatment plant or just an industrial control or operational control system, something that our technology allowed us to detect that maybe another solution would not have picked up, or maybe they even missed, and how we were able to recognize
I can give you one. I obviously can't say who it was. I can say it was a water treatment plant, particularly. This water treatment plant was breached, so we were brought in post exploitation. So it means that the adversary had access to some things, but what would happen is they would turn on what's called an HMI. An HMI is called a human machine interface. It's a fancy word for a computer that you utilize to monitor the process in a plant, so in a water treatment plant. So you're monitoring pumps, you're monitoring how much anhydrous ammonia goes in your process, all that kind of stuff, right? You're doing. And the HMI can set points into what that has to be. So the operator can look and say, okay, well, I'm not getting the right output. I need to adjust things. And that's what they do from their HMI, so the human machine interface. They would turn on this HMI, and within a few minutes, someone had hands-on access. The mouse would move, they were trying to do things on there. And that's a big deal. Like, so now all of a sudden that we have an adversary that has hands-on access inside your control system network. That's a big deal. That's going to throw up red flags and everything. People start pulling cables and panicking and all that kind of stuff. So they were trying to figure out how that adversary had access. So we shipped them one of our sensors, and our sensors are, it's our platform, but we have incident response sensors that will go on the network and then instantly start collecting network data right off the bat. Within 15 minutes, we noticed there was a piece of equipment, we didn't know what it was at the time, that was beaconing out to something on one of our threat intelligence feeds. So we watch, and we have this huge database of threat intelligence, compromised infrastructure that's all over the internet. It's kept up to date. There's a ton of information, and there's probably 500 million plus indicators in there at any one time. And they're updated hourly all the time. So we're just trying to track this known compromised infrastructure and look for anomalies around that. So we will track any connections from inside the network that tries to initiate a connection outbound to that, right? So, because that's something that probably should not happen. If you have an externally facing service, we're going to see those things hit from the outside coming in because we know they're compromised. But something inside talking out is not normal. So we noticed a piece of equipment that was talking out. And we figured out, well, okay, let's figure out what piece of equipment this is. It didn't have an EDR agent on it. So this is a piece of equipment that was on the network, did not have any kind of agent protections on it. So we started doing reconnaissance on that device to see what it was. And it happened to be what's called a Hikvision DVR camera server, right? That they forgot was on their network. They just didn't know. That device is a horribly vulnerable device that cannot be patched. So they have vulnerabilities in the firmware that cannot be patched. They need to be thrown away. So that device was actively compromised. So we try to log into, you can tell there's certain indicators of compromise you can look up around those boxes. And we can tell that box was compromised. So they were utilizing a connection to that box, and who knows how long they had it. And they had some stolen credentials. Now, we don't know where they got their credentials from, but they had legitimate credentials onto that HMI, and they were using that box to pivot and use a remote access piece of software, a legitimate remote access piece of software, to then control that box, right? So that by using that legitimate software, it got past all those EDRs, right? So even though they may have an EDR program or antivirus program with some kind of endpoint protection on that HMI, the program they were using to access it was allowed. So it was they weren't using a malicious piece of malware. They're using a compromised device that was off the radar of most normal tools to then take stolen credentials and log in that device and control it. So that didn't take us very long to figure that out, right? But that's, if you don't know that piece of equipment's there and you're not looking for that kind of stuff, it can drive you batty trying to figure out how that's happening, right? So getting that visibility in the network quickly, tells a story immediately, right? So you can start looking. That network data doesn't lie, right? There's nothing that the network is always a single source of truth. So when you're looking at data on the network, it doesn't lie, it's there. And that's how, in that first level triage, we can find out very, very quickly, this is how they're getting in and